donors are the real constituency in both parties. Donors don't like progressive policies. And these leaders in these sectors are the ones who are donating to the Democratic Party. They don't want that. They want deregulation and tax breaks. That's it. I think Jamel Bowie had a really interesting video on why the party tends to moderate in the general. And I've had Jamel Bowie on the show before, as you guys know. I will be taking a look at his commentary on the matter. Like, there are certain things that he says that I obviously agree with, but I also think that, like, this is an opportunity for the Democratic Party, considering how unpopular the Republican Party is. And the Democrats are running scared again, which is very frustrating to see because it genuinely changes the dynamic of, like, the duopoly that we have. It genuinely changes, like, the way people perceive certain things. And there are a lot of untested narratives out there. So I will be talking about, like, the Democratic Party pivot that you see regularly when the general election comes around, and why I think that's, like, personally a bad idea. Jamel blocked me back in the day for saying that Trump was not going to leave the White House peacefully. He unblocked me after January 6th. Respect. At least he unblocked you when he was like, all right, you're right. That's cope. What do you mean? This is the video. He was replying to me. What is the logic of shifting to the center of conservative, abandoning the risk of abandoning your own base? Why do that and not appeal to your base and the largest group of voters, non-voters? So he runs the classic, like, this is the Democratic Party's, like, scared calculation. And obviously he agrees with that calculation, and he does have data to back it up.
This is an interesting question.
So I will be talking about this. Actually, you know what? Let's get started on that, and then we'll make fun of Republicans in a second, okay?
What is the logic of shifting to the center or conservative positioning at the risk of abandoning your own base?
It's an 8-minute TikTok, but it doesn't matter. It's an 8-minute TikTok, but overall, it is a good question, and he actually has some solid data to back it up. It's older data, but it is the reason. You need to understand why the Democrats do this. And this is perhaps one of the best ways of describing why the Democrats do this in general. But I will offer you why I think there are some disagreements that I have here. By the way, I love Mehdi Hasan coming after Richie Torres like crazy, okay? Richie Torres is a FARA violator, okay? Just remember that. Dear DNC, Representative Jeffries, Whip Clark, Kamala Harris, Democrats, how can you sound the alarm on the Trump threat while having Richie Torres in your party? Why haven't you asked him to apologize for being hosted by far-right Trump fans? Do Muslim voters not count to you? New, Bronx Representative Richie Torres was hosted. This was in May. Last night at the home of controversial far-right Trump supporter and PR exec Ron Tarosian, who's also known for an alleged association with Pamela Geller, who's an anti-Muslim activist, herself known for multiple controversies, including pushing Obama birtherism. Richie Torres is such a freak, dude. He is such a freak bitch. Yeah. I saw Richie Torres also advocating for a specific type of Palestinian to speak at the DNC. The uncommitted movement would never demand a DNC speaking spot for Palestinians like Bassem Eid or Musab Hassan Youssef. Pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian voices who seek coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians, who resist the oppression of Palestinians by Hamas, who condemn the October 7th terror attacks as a cause of the war, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Yeah, the guy he wants is, I don't hate Muslims. I just think they are, what? Athletic? No, what is this? Or pathetic. And those who agree with them are below them. As long as Muslims believe that Allah hates non-Muslims, the Islamic violence and aggression will continue. I can't, there was a thing in front of it. I don't know why my brain patched that as athletic. I thought that was a question mark. I put a question mark there. Pathetic is what he said. Yeah, he is the son of Hamas, I think, right? This is the son of Hamas. He said he would choose one camel over every Muslim. Yeah, he's a freak. Adam McKay on Dem Party now regarding Palestine versus GOP in the 2000s regarding torture. Yeah, Adam McKay, goated filmmaker, producer. You guys know. I remember in the 2000s when exchanges with the Republican family and friends went from the rich need tax breaks to will you relax about the U.S. torture program? It's fraternity hazing. It was a jump from a hard disagree to abominable. I truly couldn't believe it at the time. Now Dems have made that same jump. It's gone from the DNC has to take dark money to beat Republicans to will you get over the mass slaughter of women and children, naked corruption, extreme right-wing border policies? from a hard disagree to what the hell have you become? I know both American political parties have always been opportunistic and fairly craven. The shock for me is in seeing hard, this is what separates humans from animals. Red lines like torture, genocide, corruption just melt away. It's astounding how easily it happened 20 years ago and maybe even more so today. State Department may well be trying to abrogate the Fourth Geneva Convention, turning Gaza and the West Bank into free fire zones. Equally as disturbing is how angered party loyalists have become at the suggestion of making demands from candidates or applying pressure. Yes, that's supposedly the entire point of democracy, but in 2024, applying pressure on candidates immediately becomes you want Trump to win. So that's what's really frustrating about this conversation. Let's continue.
Why do that and not appeal for your base and the largest group of voters, non-voters? It's interesting because it's sort of like based on a set of misconceptions, very common misconceptions, but they're misconceptions that act as basically shibboleths in online progressive spaces. So here's what the misconceptions are. The first is the notion that progressives constitute the base of the Democratic Party. That is mistaken. The second misconception,
Jamel's a super lib version of you. Yeah, he is. He is super libbed up.
Is that there is such a phenomena as candidates appealing to voters who are in the center and then losing their base as a resort. The second conception sort of like rests on the first. And the third is this idea that non-voters are A, easy to mobilize, and B, once mobilized, will reliably vote for progressives. And none of these things are true, as much as they're very commonly believed. So I've talked about this chart before. It's from the Pew Research Center. It's based on surveys done in 2020 and 2021, but I think...
So progressive left comprises like lean Dem. Progressive left comprises in this survey 12% of the base, okay? And then the largest is the Democratic mainstays. Most identify as moderate, hold many core Democratic positions about government, race, social safety net, less liberal than the other Democratic-oriented groups on immigration, military, crime. Largest single group in the Democratic coalition, older, relatively low share of college educated, okay? These are the people, okay? Actually, can someone send me the Pew Center link for this? Because I want to go through it piece by piece. Now, the thing I want to explain here is that it's not necessarily, this kind of stuff is not necessarily the best way to understand the dynamic, because you always have focus groups, or not even focus groups are silly, but you always actually poll individual issues, right? You're supposed to poll individual issues. One way to look at it is progressive economic ballot measures and progressive ballot measures in general. The other way to look at it is like single issue polls. Like Bernie Sanders went to Data for Progress recently and conducted this massive this massive research on like favorability ratings for certain progressive policies, right? And they are broadly popular. That does not mean that like the Democratic mainstays are going to say no to those policies, because they're saying yes to those policies when they are captured in these other polls. Okay. So it's also important to recognize, now you have the 12% that lean Dem, that are the progressive left. They're very liberal across the board, only group in which the majority say they are leaders who like leaders who identify as democratic socialists. Many back Sanders and Warren in Democratic primaries, overwhelmingly voted for Biden in the general. They are the most politically active Democratic-oriented group. The 12% of the Democratic Party's base, however, is also this community is that 12%, by the way. Like, this is literally, they're talking about us. Okay, they're talking about us. And then there's also like the sideliners, or rather the non-voters, the people that don't vote at all, but still absolutely engage in a shit ton, a shit ton of political activism. The point is, though, these guys make up a genuinely large chunk of the door knocking force that the Democratic Party has. Okay, that is an incredibly important constituency to the Democratic Party. And the fact that they don't actually recognize it as such is silly. They do recognize it. These are the people who protest. These are the people who pressure the Democratic Party, but they are, once captivated, once captured, once motivated, are the people who literally, and the poll shows that they already almost always end up voting for the Democratic Party regardless, right? But they're the door knockers, okay? That is huge. It's very important to understand, okay? But that doesn't even personally matter. Why doesn't this matter? Because the policies beyond that are broadly popular, even amongst goddamn Republicans. That's why you look at a fucked up state like Florida, where people are voting for like the decriminalization. Bro, you seem delusional regarding RFK. How is RFK endorsing Trump a bad thing, in your opinion? Wait, what? Okay, your name is Coin Investor, so I suspect that you're like a Bitcoin guy and you might be a little bit of a crank. So I'll get back to you in a second, okay? I do want to talk about the RFK stuff because I think it's pretty funny. I love RFK, but, we'll get back to you in a second, okay? We're talking about something entirely different. But yeah, let's get back to the TikTok video.
I think it's still good data, and it basically is breaking down the Democratic Party's electorate, and it's breaking it down by ideology and behavior. And the first thing I'm going to note is that the progressive left constitutes 12% of Democrats and lean Democrats. Now, they are the most politically active Democrats, but they are a distinct minority of the Democratic coalition.
They're not, because there is also another faction here, okay? Another faction here that is really important, that is surprisingly not under that same banner. When they get together, if the Democratic Party actually leans on its base, when they get together, they actually end up being larger than the Democratic mainstays, or at the very least the same number. The progressive left and the outsider left, very liberal on issues, particularly climate and race, vote Democratic despite dissatisfaction with both parties. Most say other nations better than the US. By far the youngest typology group, among the least politically active, okay? And by least politically active, I think they mean like not non-voters, likelihood of not being voters, okay? That together is 28%, which is the plurality alongside the Democratic mainstays. So that's really important to also acknowledge. So I don't think he's right about that when Jamel says, oh, they're just 12% of the Democratic Party. They're not necessarily like a significant block, a significant force within the Democratic Party, because that's my audience. My audience is the outsider left and the progressive left. I mean, obviously there's like Democratic mainstays and everyone else in here as well, but like overall, this community is the 28% base in the Democratic Party, which is massive. That is actually alongside the Democratic mainstays, the other 28%. So if you hyper focus on the Democratic mainstays, you should be talking about the 28% outsider left and the progressive left in general.
The largest group within the Democratic coalition, the largest two groups, are establishment liberals and Democratic mainstays. Democratic mainstays of the two are the largest single group. They most identify as moderate. They are less liberal. This is key. They are less liberal than other.
Yeah, this part is also correct, though. Democratic mainstays mostly identify as moderate, hold many core Democratic positions about government, race, social safety nets, less liberal than other Democratic-oriented groups on immigration, military crime, largest single group in the Democratic coalition, older, relatively low share college educated, one of the most racially and ethnically diverse topology groups. The establishment liberals, the Ukraine flag and the bio guys, are solidly liberal, strong supporters of the Democratic Party and its leaders, upbeat about politics and nation, and favor compromise. They're highly politically engaged, one of the most educated topology groups, racially and ethnically diverse, similar age profile to the population as a whole. Okay? But none of this actually factors in individual, like the individual favorability. None of this factors in the individual favorability of key policies that literally everyone thinks is good. Okay? That's important to recognize. You have to remember this. It's very important to recognize. Let's continue.
Democratic-oriented groups on immigration, military, and crime. They are older. They generally are less likely to have attended college, etc., etc. When you combine establishment liberals and Democratic mainstays, you have half.
What is this? I don't understand how you could be against the war in Gaza and feel bad for the Palestinian people and support the Democrats at the same time, which is currently a Zionist lobby. Hassan, you're a smart guy. Genuinely hear your thoughts about that. Wait, what? Dude, what do you mean? I I don't understand what you're trying to say. Are you pro RFK or are you anti RFK? Are you pro Kamala Harris? Are you or pro Trump? Like, you're giving me confusing signals. Just wait for like 5 minutes. Let me finish this goddamn video.
Of the Democratic coalition. So a Democratic candidate who's trying to appeal to their base, given what we know about the actual composition of the Democratic electorate, is probably actually going to take a more conservative than progressives like line on immigration, crime. They're going to...
Wrong. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this at all. Okay. And here's why. I'm going to show you one study. Okay. One study. That's it. This is very important. Very, very, very important. Okay. I covered this yesterday. Medlock posted this yesterday on Twitter. It is something that I have been screaming from the mountaintops about for quite some time. Okay. The question he posed was, it's crazy how 2020 public was more pro-immigration than ever before. Okay. And in 2024, the public is more anti-immigrant than any time in the last 2 decades. This is for one reason and one reason only. That is, throughout the Trump administration, there was consistent counter messaging from the Dems against this insane anti-immigrant lies. When Biden came into office, they never counter messaged against the same reactionary lies the Republicans kept repeating. This is the direct result of that. Okay? People will lie to you because they have been deluded. They will say over and over again, no, it's because it became a massive problem. It became a massive problem under the Biden administration because immigrants were like running rampant around the country. They are not. Nothing has fundamentally changed about the way that immigrants have the immigrants have actually survived in this country. Nothing is different. Okay? Nothing. None of those metrics that the Republicans keep hammering on are the responsibility of the migrants that came into this country. They're not. Okay? It's not. It's just pure abject lies. All of the replies to this post was literally like, well, it's maybe because, migrants are doing the thing. Okay, but aren't you kind of doing the Will Stancil thing except for immigration, not economy? Like, there's no real issue. People are just propagandizing into thinking there is. Vibegration, if you will. No, as a centrist in the vibes idea, media drives views versus material realities drive views. I believe that sometimes it's more of more of one and sometimes more of the other. In this case, the latter seems to be the likely big contributor. That's exactly what this is. It is absolutely vibe-based, okay? And the only reason why it's vibe-based and has nothing to do with material reality is that when it comes to these sorts of issues like crime and when it comes to these sorts of issues like immigration, personal anecdotes are really, really powerful in creating a narrative, okay? It's just what it is. And there is absolutely no one on the Democratic Party front that is actually advocating against this sort of thing. That's the difference, because the media overall is trying to cut narratives that say like, well, the inflation has gone down. Like, what the fuck do you poors want to talk about? Like, why are you still acting like you're suffering with your grocery bills? But you can't really change that reality when you're having a hard time paying for it. Okay? Like, that's something that they're experiencing. Do you think that people are, when you look at the material reality, do you think people are getting raped every day by migrants? Do you think people are getting robbed every day by migrants? No, it hasn't happened. That's not a real thing. I think you're missing an aspect of large-scale human trafficking of migrants on the border in northern blue cities. When this happened, a lot of northern liberals turned against migration. You think I'm missing that? I've been screaming from the rooftops about how insane it is that the Republican governors were able to do this, and how insane it is that the Democratic federal government didn't actually immediately pump additional funds to fix the processing in states like Illinois and New York. This is something that I have been yelling about for quite some time. Yeah, that's what's changed between 2020 and now. It's insane. It's not insane, because even with all, you're describing the exact same principle that I have in terms of crime and the way people perceive crime versus actual crime rates. People see migrants in large numbers standing in lines and immediately go, migrant crime, something is off. Crime has not gone up in those places in spite of the massive numbers of immigrants that were shipped to these places. So what does that mean? What does that tell you? That tells you that people with crime, they saw homeless people and they saw crime everywhere. I'm seeing homeless people everywhere. That means crime is everywhere. They see migrants and they think, oh my God, we're being invaded. It has nothing to do with the material reality and everything to do with how people perceive reality. Okay? That's it. That's it. That's literally it. People have a reactionary predisposition, especially in a country like the United States of America, especially when one party is not actively counter-messaging against another party, routinely doing white supremacist agitated propaganda. That's it. Okay? Blue city mayors like Adams played into this too. Yeah, he's a freak ass loser who is right-wing as shit. What do you mean? Can you really convince people with data instead of vibes? Guys, data is reality. Vibes are not reality. If you're asking me like, well, you know, we have a much more holistic problem in terms of like people refusing to reckon with data and hyper focus on the vibes instead, then that is a much more consequential, much larger issue, okay, than one we can tackle right now. This is children left behind, or rather not left behind, that should have been left behind, okay? This is damn near multiple decades of like underfunding our public education system. You know what I mean? Like I can't tackle that part of the equation. Like now we're talking about now we're having a meta conversation about like how stupid Americans are. Okay. That's like what we're talking about now, which is like much larger problem. You know what I mean? Like I can't tackle that when I'm trying to have a conversation about the truth. Okay. This is where progressives are now in the minority on is the crime issue. We can't fight against perception. Yes, we can. I have for years. And ultimately, people have to reason with the reality, with the data. How do they reason with it? When NPR starts writing about why are people so panicked about crime when it seems like crime is actually down across the board? When Vox starts writing articles like that, when the New York Times starts writing articles like that, then people come back to realize maybe this wasn't the truth. Maybe we've been duped. Maybe there is no top of the hour ad break, except there is one. Okay? You might perceive it as though it doesn't exist because obviously you're subscribed for $6 or for free. So you're like, oh, there is no top of the hour ad break. There is one. There is one. You know, you might not see it though. If you want to be a part of the people that don't see the top of the hour ad break, then like I said, all you need to do is subscribe. You can also get gifted a sub if you are lucky. Okay, here's the 3-minute ad break now. All you have to do is write an article and try to pitch it to local news a different way to avoid these sentiments. Yeah, they're not going to listen to you. Come on. Anyway, MP Sharky, thank you for the 5 gifted, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. You're 100% right about this. If you couldn't message then, the retail theft panic would still be going. I mean, it wasn't just me, though. Ultimately, people, it goes back to the same dynamic that I talked about with respect to mainstream media and like their other interests. Their interest, the interest in the mainstream media is like to obviously maintain a level of credibility. When push comes to shove, they have to reckon with the reality, okay? And they have to start writing about the truth. We are now at that stage with mainstream media. They did the crime panic narratives. They leaned into that pretty heavy for quite some time. And now they've gotten around, they've come back around to like write about the actual truth, okay? We're there now. So they're playing catch up. And they're also doing that for immigrant crime too, because they probably recognize that this is something that Trump has been propagandizing on that is an abject falsehood. Genuinely, dude, you should see if you can leverage your status by reaching out to the newspaper like LA Times. I bet they take you up on it. No, dude. And also, no. That's it. I'm just going to say no to that. I think you guys are crazy. I have like what I'm talking about here that needs to change is not something that can be changed with like one article. Okay. Writing one article in the LA Times or New York Times or whatever is nowhere near close to the amount of impact that I have on my stream every day. What we're talking about is like other journalists, like a shit ton of journalists and Sinclair Broadcasting not constantly pumping propaganda. This is a much larger project than just like one guy writing a good article. There's people that write good articles every now and then on in all of these outlets. That doesn't change the narrative that much. Ran into a hater today and insisted you claim to be a boots on the ground journalist and said that he watched you for years. I don't get how people can be this delusional and proud of it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand how people like break their brains so hard like that. I've literally never claimed to be a boots on the ground journalist. I don't know how someone can, I don't understand how someone can just like watch me for years and then get duped by like a YouTube video so hard like that. It's kind of like the police brutality propaganda, same difference. Personal anecdotes are very popular. Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this
border crisis narrative is incredibly annoying from the media, by the way. They are absolutely
this is March 15, 2021.
feeding into this. And they're going to cause the Democrats to behave in a totally, even in a more reactionary way than they were already going to behave. It is so incredibly manufactured. There's always been a crisis at the border. When there are humanitarian problems occurring at the border as a consequence of the conditions there, 120 degrees they have to traverse in the desert, all that sort of stuff. And then also the American government adding on to the cruelty with the way that they choose to deal with people that are crossing the border, that are seeking asylum. There is an extra crisis on the border. There's always a crisis on the border. It's never stopped. The problem is the way media covers it. You can either cover it like you do under the Trump administration, which is somewhat honestly, from a moral grandstand point of view, like an actual honest point of view, by saying this is really messed up, this is really horrible, the way that we are treating these people is absolutely ridiculous. Or you can treat it in a way where you look at the border and you say, there's a gigantic crisis happening in the border currently, and it's really bad because so many people are coming in. So many people are coming in. So many people are coming in. What are we going to do? Depending on who is in charge, we either deal with it from...
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy how future... I have the foresight. I have the vision. It's crazy. Everything I said back then happened. Okay? Everything I said back then happened. There was another really funny thing that I saw on Reddit. I'm going to see if I can find it on my Reddit. Someone posted something that I saw that was insane. Let me see if I can find it real quick. On the Hasan_Piker Reddit. Where is it? Where the fuck is it? It blew my mind. Where? I'm trying to find it. Was Chipmunk Voice. That's not the one. It was about me predicting Kamala winning. Or it was about me predicting Kamala Harris becoming the president. But I'm trying to... Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Help neolib mamos. My subreddit has been popping off, apparently. I haven't even noticed it. I rarely even go on there, but I did see one. And now I can't find it. No, not the one where I'm talking about Biden dying. There was another one. There was another Lisan Al-Gaib moment, but I can't find it now. Let me see. No, not the conservatives are weird one.
No, everybody likes the guy who was like foaming out of the mouth, screaming about children's genitals at the Lego store. Everybody thinks that that should definitely be the national campaign strategy. Oh my God. Bro, they go off of this. Hillary Clinton could become president. I don't.
Oh, yeah, it is this one. Yeah, it is this one. I was talking about how conservatives are weirdos.
Foaming out of the mouth, screaming about children's genitals at the Lego store. Everybody thinks that that should definitely be the national campaign strategy. Oh my God. Bro, they go off of this. Hillary Clinton could become president. I don't want to write that into the... I don't want to put that in writing. I don't want the DNC to hear me say this, okay? You're going to make Kamala Harris president. That's what you're going to do. Can't believe I said that out loud. Oh my God. Oh no, now it's going to happen.
Dude, that's crazy. Dude, come on, dude. This is why all of my haters, okay, are either outed as pedophiles or pedo adjacent, or constantly find themselves wrong, okay? They constantly find themselves so completely and utterly wrong because I'm doing analysis. They are just repeating what they read on the New York Times, if they do read, or Wikipedia pages, or they don't have their own points of view. They don't have the same experience that I have. Okay? Like this is from this past year, April 19th, 2023. Talking about how weirdo conservatives running on their own fumes and thinking that this is going to be a smart way to campaign around that is going to cause them to lose to a person like Kamala Harris. Your ego is very small as well. Bro, come on. I get shitted on. I get dookied on a regular basis. Let me have this, dude. Let me have this. There is so much Hassan is bad shit out there in the commentary space, especially from like Divorcelli, Pettarelli, okay? And all their astroturfed movement from their orbiters and shit, okay? Yeah, sometimes I'm going to stand on business. Sometimes I'm going to actually show you, like, look, it's so strange how things I have said will happen are happening, especially in a moment like this when they are literally happening, okay? Like, I don't think this is ego. This is me just, like, once again, proving to you that I know what the I'm talking about. I'm going to run it again. Republicans running on this weirdo ass narrative is going to cause Kamala Harris to win, is what I'm saying. It would cause Hillary Clinton to win. Here, let's run it again.
Your own children.
Sir,
spend your money in a place that doesn't do that to kids.
Sir, you're about to get trespassed.
Thank you.
Oh, dude, I wanted them to beat his ass. That would have been awesome. Yeah, no, everybody likes the guy who's like foaming out of the mouth, screaming about children's genitals at the Lego store. Everybody thinks that that should definitely be the national campaign strategy. Oh my God, bro, they go off of this. Hillary Clinton could become president. I don't want to write that into I don't want to put that in writing. I don't want the DNC to hear me say this. Okay, you're gonna make Kamala Harris president. That's what you're gonna do. Can't believe I said that out loud. Oh my God. Yeah. Turns out the DNC was watching. Anyway, I should clip this and put this on TikTok. Austin Knox, put that shit on TikTok, man.
I know God.
Put the date right up there too. I need to do like a Hasanabi predictions and what has happened by going back to like some of my older shit, like even this one on immigration, this one on Republicans running on like weirdo narratives. Remember all the pedos who were chirping after you said focusing on trans people constantly is weird to that son of the football player claiming you had to destroy them with facts and logic? Yeah. I mean, that again is now like a prominent fixture in the Democratic messaging, which is to constantly be like, why do you care about this? That's crazy. You're behaving in a weird way. I was right about retail theft as well. It was complete bullshit. A Hasanabi versus Hasanabi TikTok where current you is vindicating old you. Yeah. You need your editors like a little bit to do a comp of you being right. Yeah. On crime panic narratives, I've done so many videos on that shit. Completely correct. On greedflation, I've done videos on that. Completely vindicated. On immigrant narratives and how people will become more right-wing if there is no Democratic Party counter messaging on this shit. If the media keeps pumping this like immigrants are destroying society shit. Completely right on that too. Anyway, how do we get here? The reason why I was talking about this is because I was originally watching the Jamel Bowie 8-minute TikTok. Okay. Whomever says it's ego doesn't like that you're spoiling the situational dramedy we're living in. Yeah, I know my mic is quiet compared to the PC volume. I know. Okay. Don't forget about the Bitcoin, bro. I mean, that was another one. That was another one that I mean, that was the easiest lock when I said NFTs are the biggest phony bullshit of all time and that you will be duped and you will lose money. Many people yelled at me about that. They were very upset about that. Here, I'll increase my audio a little bit more, okay, for you. Hopefully this will be a little bit better for you. All right, this should be. I increase my audio a little bit more. Hopefully that'll work. I mean, you're not even a prophet or anything. Simply applying historical materials in the present conditions leads to great leftist analysis. Message to libs. Exactly. All right. But the reason why I was talking about that is because a lot of this stuff, in terms of like how reactionary Democrats have become on immigration, is a direct consequence of not actually constantly telling the truth to your base. Okay? If you don't do that, if you don't consistently tell the truth to your base, then obviously the only narrative that is like the only narrative that's top of mind, okay, is going to be right-wing narratives, and they're going to be duped by it. Another perspective about you at the DNC that you might find interesting.
On his way out of the convention.
Yeah. Oh, I saw this one earlier today. Hold on. Well,
Wait, so
it's not. I like that TikTok. I saw that this morning. Hold on. Let's just finish this, and we'll
Probably
do that.
talk a lot about compromise. They're probably gonna. They'll probably hit kind of standard issue Democratic views on the social insurance state, on education, on healthcare, they're gonna actually sound a lot like Joe Biden, for example. They're gonna sound a lot like Barack Obama in the 2012 campaign. The other thing is that base vote.
The reason why he says Barack Obama in the 2012 campaign is because he doesn't want to say Barack Obama in the 2008 campaign, which was one of the most historically popular candidacies and runs of all time for the Democratic Party. And it directly counters his narrative right here. And that's why he's not talking about that, because Barack Obama in 2008 ran a progressive campaign, and literally, like, Barack Obama historically won the Cuban vote in Florida. Okay. This has never been a thing that a Democrat has been able to achieve. Why? One must ask the question, why? This is one of the most reactionary voter bases, okay? The Cubans in the chat will tell you, okay? They know their parents, they know their uncles, they know their aunties, okay? They know how their family members operate, okay? They are omega conservative. It is an incredibly conservative voter bloc. How the did Barack Obama win the Cuban vote in Florida? How? Because he won younger Cubans with his message of progress. Okay? How did he win Indiana? He activated a base of support that truly believed he would be the hope and change candidate with progressive campaigning.
Voters, almost by definition, are voters who always turn out for an election. They are stalwart voters. They're almost always going to cast a ballot. And so in terms of those voters like least likely to sit out an election, you're talking about the base, almost by definition. There is a danger, right? There is a cohort of Democratic voters who are not all that reliable, but do hold progressive views, and they're significant enough that they could influence the results of an election depending on the election. But they're not really part of the base. They're kind of like a base adjacent. Not only are they base adjacent, but in a presidential election where, again, this is what we're talking about, the pivotal voters do occupy something close to the moderate or even right of center of the median voter.
This is, in my opinion, this is post hoc rationalizations specifically that justifies the Democratic Party's moderate swing that they engage in every general election. Okay? It is untested because since 2008, we have rarely ever had a Democrat come out and swing for the fences with progressive messaging on the general, because the Democrats always end up going to the moderate base, okay? They always moderate their positions when the general election comes around, with the exception of 2008. I would also say that Joe Biden, when he mentioned Joe Biden, he was like, oh, this is what it looks like, whatever. On certain issues, Joe Biden actually also went to the right on, like, funding the police, for example, but he did not go to the right on key issues like immigration. So how do you explain that? Joe Biden was literally more woke and more progressive than Kamala Harris in 2020 on the issue of immigration. Joe Biden ran on pathway to citizenship. Joe Biden ran on directly reversing all of the Trump administration's anti-immigrant agenda. Joe Biden literally ran on more progressive messaging than Kamala Harris is running on right now with respect to immigration. Now, obviously, the reason why Kamala Harris is running on a right-wing slant on immigration is because of Joe Biden now. For the record, just make no mistake, Joe Biden himself changed his attitude by 2024 because they retriangulated, okay? But why evidence clearly shows pushing towards progressive policies gains them more votes. Look how much momentum the Walz pick gave Kamala, because donors are the real constituency in both parties. Donors don't like progressive policies, because progressive policies, if the Democrats actually ran on progressive policies and then turned and pushed for progressive policies and passed progressive legislation, would end up harming, in the short term, harming the profit margins of a lot of these sectors. And these leaders in these sectors are the ones who are donating to the Democratic Party. They don't want that. They want deregulation and tax breaks. That's it. That is the major reason.
That cohort is probably going to be larger than these base adjacent Democratic voters, in part because, remember, voters are not evenly geographically distributed. And so you can maybe, I guess you can rally them, but if all of them are in California and New York and Illinois, then it doesn't really get you anything. It doesn't really buy you anything in terms of the election. And
yeah, he's also suspecting that the large majority of these like progressives are only in California, are only in places like New York. And that's also not true. Okay. That's also not true. The idea that like, if that was the case, Bernie would not have won Oklahoma in the Democratic primaries in 2016. Okay. That's not correct. There are a shit ton of people, especially in a primary, when you have someone like Bernie be able to activate any people that are outside of the periphery of the normal Democratic Party establishment liberals to go and participate in the primary, that's a big deal, okay? That's a major deal because primary voters are the most primed voters for the Democratic Party. They're the MSNBC watchers. They are the institutional voters of the base of the Democratic Party. They're not the woke lords. They're not the younger voters. They only come out in the general election. That's why I always say, whatever is happening in the primary, you have to 10x for the general, right? If you have 100,000 uncommitted voters in a state, that means there's going to be 10x the number of uncommitted voters that literally don't end up voting, right?
Assuming you can like depress the base, if you lose support of the Democratic base and those voters are concentrated in heavily Democratic states, but you gain in turn moderate and conservative voters, then yes, your popular vote total goes down, but you're more likely to win the national election, the Electoral College. And so it's a mistake, I think, to think that the relationship is as straightforward as you're portraying it. So now we have this issue of non-voters, and it's very common.
So this part is like definitely the part that I somewhat agree with, the non-voter part. But like overall, he's saying that like we're making an the Democrats are making an electoral college calculation in order to activate more moderate people, right? Like more moderate voters. I'm not convinced that that is the reality. I'm not convinced that that is the reality at all, especially when you have unimaginably progressive ballot measures that are not directly attached to a Democrat winning by larger margins than the Republican is winning in those very same states, whether it be Florida, whether it be Kansas, whether it be Kentucky, all of these other places where people are begging for progressive policies. Not only that, but also this is very important. Here are the most popular policies in swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Minnesota, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Expanding Medicare to cover dental, vision, and hearing. Okay? Amongst all likely voters, strongly support is at 61%. So there's 84% support, 10% opposition. That's at plus 74. Okay? Cut the cost of prescription drugs in half by making sure that Americans pay no more than what they pay in Europe or Canada. Plus 73% net favorability. Like all the way down to the PRO Act, which is the lowest, it still has a plus 31% net favorability. Okay? I remember you saying that the best bill is a nameless, faceless bill, i.e. not attached to Democrats or Republicans' names. Exactly. I do think that you're not considering the Trump factor, though. There are a large number of Republicans wanting to bail that could really bolster the Dem base, but would make the party more conservative. That's what they're playing for. Yeah, it's bullshit. That's fine with Joe Biden. This is Kamala Harris now, okay? It's Harristown, baby. Harris Waltz. That's the ticket. It's no longer a Biden-Harris ticket, okay? It's the Harris Waltz ticket. That calculation is bunk, okay? That calculation, by the way, was going to cost the election for Joe Biden anyway. That's the problem. No, this is the entire population of likely voters, okay? Likely voter population, not just Democratic voters, not just Republican voters. It is the likely voter population, people that you are supposed to win over. So that is the problem. Generally, when the party dominates a state, they actually tend to be more moderate. California is probably a lot more Democratic mainstays. Oh, I think the issues they are moving on are the wrong ones. Dude, if that was the case, for the record, I just want to mention something, okay? If tacking right was a successful strategy, the Democrats would not be getting cumstered by like 30-point margins right now on immigration to Donald Trump versus in 2020 when they were a lot closer or even sometimes defeating Donald Trump on the issue of immigration. Please. Obviously, there's other factors at play there. Donald Trump was the incumbent and obviously was doing horrific shit. But most significantly, there was counter messaging against immigration for 4 years. So much so that you had literally seated representatives saying like abolish ICE and shit. Okay. Immigration wasn't even an issue until 2016. And as you said, they stopped counter messaging. I know. And that's stupid. How do we not understand that? That's my point. On the issue of foreign policy, Hillary Clinton was seen as a war hawk, understandably, by the broadest majority of Americans, okay? Donald Trump, literally, this is for some weird reason, like, this has just been memory hold, but Donald Trump literally ran as a dove, okay? Donald Trump ran to the left of Hillary Clinton when it came to war. A lot of people forget this reality. So Kamala Harris repeating that mistake in repeating the Hillary Clinton 2016 mistake in 2020 is awful. That is the worst thing I heard. Okay, we need the most lethal military force. Like, that is the dumbest thing you can do. The dumbest thing you can do. And people are basically, one, going back to their worst instincts in terms of how the Democratic Party communicates their message, and also trying to do post hoc rationalizations after the campaign puts out this kind of right-wing sentiment. I hear it even in my own community. Okay? I hear it in my own community. People are yelling at me. I see the TikTok comments. People are so mad. They think I switched up. They think like, all Hasan cares about is Gaza. All Hasan cares about is Gaza. I'm not even talking about Gaza. Gaza is one aspect of this. Okay? That's the other reason why I show you all of the other instances where I've been completely right. Because the reason why I need you to understand why I'm showing you like the older videos of me correctly calling out what will happen in the 2024 election is because I'm correctly telling you this right now, and people will not listen to me, just like they didn't listen to me in all of those other instances. That video from 2021 talking about immigration. This is going to be a major problem if the Democrats don't counter message. And it has become a major problem because the Democrats did not counter message. The media did not actually cover it adequately. It's because I'm right. I was right back then, too early. People yelled at me back then. I'm right now, too early. People are yelling at me now. Let's get back to this though.
More likely to win the national election, the Electoral College. And so it's a mistake, I think, to think that the relationship is as straightforward as you're portraying it. So now we have this issue of non-voters, and it's very common to believe that non-voters are this like secret and hidden progressive behemoth that if you can just mobilize, you can kind of just win elections with no problem. But again, that's not true. Non-voters are disproportionately young and disproportionately non-white, but that doesn't mean they're disproportionately liberal. Yeah, the voters who skipped 2016 and 2018 but showed up for 2020 split almost evenly between Biden and Trump. There was no meaningful difference in the distribution of votes among that cohort. And there's actually good reason to believe that at least with Trump on the ballot, non-voters are more inclined to support him over.
Wrong. This part is also wrong. Activating non-voters is very difficult. He's right about that. Okay? He is right as about that. Okay? Especially in the primary, Bernie Sanders failed because he was Bernie Sanders' strategy in 2020, in 2019 in the primaries was to basically bring out non-voters into the primaries. Impossible. Okay? Most people, when I was door knocking, literally didn't even know that there was a primary. They were like, I like Bernie. But they didn't even know that there was a primary happening. Okay? But the general is different. It's easier to actually activate non-voters in the general. Having said that, okay, the reason why non-voters swing in Trump's or the idea that they're going to swing in Trump's favor because they're not like mythical, they're not these like progressive people is wrong. Okay, it's not about them being progressive. It's about what policies the Democrats are putting at the forefront of their campaign. If the Democrats don't ever offer progressive policies that would greatly improve their lives, then we can't even test whether or not it's a successful strategy, with the exception of 2008 with Barack Obama. That's why there were so many double Obama to Trump voters that went from Barack Obama to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump in 2016 presented himself as a moderate force on a lot of these issues. Okay. He presented himself as a counter to Donald Trump. White supremacy played a big role in this, of course, as well. But like there were so many double Obama to Donald Trump voters. Well, how the fuck did that happen? Everyone kept saying, well, how the fuck did that happen? It's because they literally were activated as non-voters originally that hadn't voted, that had never voted. But Barack Obama's message was appealing to them. They voted for Barack Obama. They were like, all right, I'll give it another shot again. And their material conditions did not change in a positive manner. So they were dissuaded from ever voting for the Democrats ever again. So they went and they voted for the guy who was the anti-establishment pick, Donald Trump. Okay, shut up. Nobody cares about you, says Moisty Toenail 69. That's crazy. The poll is mostly the Dems' economic platform, is it not? No, that's the problem. The Democratic Party's policies are never actually fully progressive. They don't run with progressive messaging on the forefront of their campaigning, with the exception of 2008 with Barack Obama.
The Democratic candidate. The other thing to remember is that non-voting, like voting, sticks. If you are not accustomed to voting, if you do not regularly vote, it is extremely difficult to turn you into a voter, and vice versa. If you routinely vote, it's actually very difficult to make that kind of person.
This part is absolutely correct. If you don't vote, it's very hard to get you to come out and vote, okay? And if you do vote, it's hard for you to not vote.
A non-voter. It's when you're thinking about campaign resources, you have a limited amount of resources and a limited amount of time. It makes more sense to go after undecided voters than it does to try to convert non-voters into voters, because not only are you putting a ton of resources into the effort, but there's no guarantee that once you've converted a non-voter to a voter that they're going to vote for you. So yeah, I mean, if you're kind of thinking rationally, I think if you're looking at what the actual electoral picture is, then if you are a campaign, it makes the most sense. If you're a campaign, again, in a U.S. presidential election, it makes the most sense to go after undecided voters, moderate leaners, in the swing states, and to kind of appeal to them at all costs. And I'll note that the rhetorical emphasis doesn't always translate into an actual policy.
I think that's one of the funniest parts about this is that, okay, of course, Jamal Bowie rarely ever talks about Gaza in general, but like that argument is 100% primed for Kamala Harris separating herself from Joe Biden on Israel. Okay, because what he's saying, if true, okay, and there's some truth to it, literally means that Kamala Harris should immediately separate herself from Gaza policy on Biden and actually force Biden to immediately implement a ceasefire and the only way to do that, obviously, is by denying weapons transfers to Israel so that they fucking are forced to play ball with the United States of America, because there are no voters that are out there saying, I'm going to vote for the Democratic Party if Israel continues its genocide, but I won't do it if Israel's genocide is stopped. But there are a shit ton of voters that are saying they're more likely to vote for the Democratic Party in key swing states if a ceasefire is achieved. That's it.
Donald Trump in the 2016 election downplayed the Republican Party's opposition to social insurance, did not abandon it, but downplayed it. And likewise, I think what Democrats are likely to do this fall is to play up the party's support for border security, which has been a consistent thing going back to Obama, and downplay its support for comprehensive immigration reform. When it comes to actually crafting legislation and making policy decisions, there's a good chance that it will try to satisfy all the various interest groups and players within the coalition. So in the case of Republicans, Trump may have downplayed opposition to social insurance, but totally tried to cut the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid. And his budgets included cuts for Medicare and Social.
He's right about this part. He's right about the Trump part. He's wrong about the Democrat part, because the Democratic bill is in front of us right now. And Kamala Harris keeps saying that's the bill that they wrote, even though it is the Republicans that wrote the bill, and there is no compromise. There is literally no compromise there for the Democratic Party. Okay, his immigration take is kind of. We will disagree on this one. What do you mean? Kamala's speech on Gaza was almost worse than Biden's remarks on Monday night. The self-determination line was good, but some of Biden's comments on the urgency of implementing a ceasefire Monday night were actually better, and he wasn't as adamant on defend itself. Yeah. No, Kamala's foreign policy was literally dog shit. Like, I'm talking Bush-era Republican neocon shit, okay? Like, unimaginably bad. And so many people have been coping and claiming that it's because she wants to... so many people have been coping and saying, oh, it's because like she's a woman and she needs to look muscular on foreign policy because as a woman, they're going to see her as weak. Dog, Hillary Clinton literally outflanked the Republicans on reactionary foreign policy, and Trump was seen as the moderate. How the are we literally trying to do that? Now, obviously, Hillary Clinton was, unimaginably unpopular and was a very bad candidate for many different reasons, right? Kamala Harris doesn't have those same weaknesses, like 30 years of like Oppo research and an entire cottage industry planted on, surrounding Hillary Clinton being, an awful monster with all these conspiracies and shit. But even then, immigration enforcement is popular among all voters, including Latinos. Reform is less popular because voters don't see it as an issue that impacts them. Yeah, that I already covered that base. H. Bizzle, you're wrong. The only reason why immigration enforcement is seen as popular is because the Democrats never counter-messaged. The reason why the Democrats were popular on immigration in 2020, more popular on immigration in 2020 versus 2024, is quite literally because the Democrats had 4 years of counter-messaging against Trump's incredibly reactionary right-wing immigration policies, okay? If you don't counter-message, then people don't think about it from a different perspective. Why would they? Democrats completely accepted the right-wing framing on this issue. They did not counter-message for 4 years, completely accepted the right-wing framing on this issue, even though it is built on complete fabulous fabrications, lies, hysterical, right-wing, white nativist lies, okay? If I had to sum up my fears about the present conjuncture succinctly, I could simply say that I think this post is correct. Liberal hawk bros, we have never been more back. In fact, we never even left. It's true. No American votes on this basis. No American that is voting for the Democratic Party votes on this basis. Okay? I'm not wrong. Polling shows it. I'm not wrong. Polling shows that Latino voters don't give a fuck about immigration reform when tested. This is mainly because they don't see themselves as immigrants. Most Latino families in the U.S. are generations of family in the U.S. Oh my God, dude. When you look at places like Arizona, when you look at places like New Mexico, when you look at places like Nevada, there is a shit ton of first generation Latino voters who have undocumented parents, dude. What are you talking about? They're born on U.S. soil. They're citizens. Those Latino voters, first generation Latino voters that are born into families with undocumented migrant parents, absolutely care about immigration in this situation. Stop using polling from activist groups. Use polling from independent sources. Tested their Latino crosstabs shows things like inflation, cost of living, retirement security, and healthcare are all more important. Okay. The other, you are a Riri. Can we box? If you win, I'll give you $2,500. If I win, I get nothing. I want to embarrass your dumbass. Why the fuck would I ever say yes to that? The fuck am I going to do with $2,500 that you're not going to even give me? And not only is that a fact, but what you are forgetting in this analysis, in this calculation, is something that I keep reiterating and keep repeating, which is untested narratives in the marketplace run rampant, okay? They allow the Republicans to completely captivate the entire field, okay? I don't know why you're refusing to hear me out on this. Democrats for 4 years did not counter message against the Republican reactionary sentiment on immigration. Okay? Lib Bizzle is the most powerful chatter, considering that he also literally gets pay stubs from the DNC. So I can't even yell at him about, show me the pay stubs, but he's back. Lib Bizzle, why did the Democratic Party come across as more popular on the issue of immigration in 2020 than they did in 2024, than they do now in 2024? Answer me this question. Why? Why did the Democratic Party lose out in areas where they actually ran with crime is running rampant narratives, like in New York, than they did everywhere else? We should emphasize reform to the immigration process, but enforcement is the issue we need to win to do it. Not only are you silly about this take, you're objectively wrong on this take because you're not answering my question. Why was the Democratic Party more popular on immigration in 2020 when they objectively ran on a progressive campaign, a significantly more progressive campaign in 2020 on immigration than 2024 in comparison to Donald Trump? Same guy, running against the same guy. That's number one. Answer me that. The second question that I have for you is, when crime panic narratives were running rampant, why did the Democrats actually perform worse in the 2022 midterm elections in areas where they capitulated to the crime panic narratives? Okay? Illegal crossings were dramatically lower in 2020 and it wasn't as salient as an issue. You're so wrong. Immigration was a massive issue in 2020. It was a massive, massive issue in 2020. It just was a massive issue that favored the Democratic Party more because we analyzed it from the perspective of how cruel the Republicans were being. That's the difference. It was an issue that the broad majority of the public actually looked at and went, it's crazy. It's crazy that the Republicans keep running the caravan narratives and then simultaneously advocating to separate children. Okay? Because crime wasn't up and people locally tuned out messaging because of that. Immigrant crime is not up either. Immigration, undocumented migrants coming into the country is not a problem. That's why the Republicans have to lie and say they're stealing your jobs and they're raping your daughters. That's why they have to tack it to something that is a problem. But because there is no problem, they just make up the narrative. How do you not see this? That's my argument. And kids in cages was absolutely a salient narrative in the 2020 election, which is why the Democratic Party was significantly more popular on the issue of immigration in 2020 than 2024. Okay? The media has raised the issue and put us in a box, and now we can't just be about process reform because crossing the issue has more salience. Now, the other part of this is you're talking about enforcement is the issue. We need to win on it. We should emphasize reform on the immigration process. Democrats are not doing that. The Democratic bill is not doing that. That's another aspect of this that I'm very frustrated by. You know this as well as I do because you're a DNC operative that the Democrats used to do push-pull on immigration. Okay? Compromise, always. What they would do is they would do border enforcement, but then they would also get the Dreamers. Okay? That's how Obama played it, right? That's why he was a deporter in chief, but also simultaneously he won certain things for immigration, and that it became an objectively insanely popular thing. So popular that even Trump couldn't fuck up the Dreamer situation because it had 90% approval rating. Amnesty for Dreamers has 90% approval rating. 90, okay? 90%. Why? Because Obama fought for it. It happened. Well, not Obama. Dreamers fought for it. Obama pushed it. It happened. And guess what? It is impossible to now go back on a policy like that. 90%. I'm not saying immigrant crime is up. It is an issue because the corporate media is beholden to the right-wing spin machine and they raise the salience. There's nothing we can do about that now. That's bullshit. That is bullshit. There are so many things you can do about that. Okay? There are things that the Democratic Party should have done for 4 years that they did not, but they should have. Wait, hold on. What the is going on? I think. Hold on. That's not happening. All right. I thought that my delivery was here. Even if everything he said was correct, it's still immoral and we should not capitulate. Yeah, obviously I'm not even talking about the morality argument though. This is an argument that's supposed to favor the Democratic Party. That's the argument that people are making. That's the argument that H. Bizzle is making. And I'm literally telling they did not do push polls on it when tested in groups, in polling and even progressive polls. The general public as a whole wants enforcement and a better process. Then they say enforcement is an issue bigger than fixing the process, even though they agree the process is and actually like and want immigrants. Brother, this is something that I've talked about so much, okay? Americans are objectively insane on many issues, but especially immigration, because Americans are actually, in comparison to our European counterparts, much more understanding of migrants because this is a nation that has been kept up by immigration, okay? This is a nation that has actually been able to not have issues with birth rates, specifically because of the migrant population. Okay, we are an engine that runs on migrants. Okay, that's it. So while on the one hand, when you let crime panic narratives run rampant, immigrant crime panic narratives run rampant, people end up having a 60% approval on mass deportation. That's crazy. Okay, that's insane. That is Hitlerian as the Democrats should not be capitulating to that, because they're not going to win by tacking right. That's it. They never win when they tack right on this stuff. They don't win on these issues when they tack right. Okay. Here's another Medlock post that I want to show, because they tested that narrative as well. They tested the narrative that you're talking about in terms of marketing, and it shows that it doesn't work. Where is it? 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 He posted about it. He posted another, he posted about it when he talked about the where the fuck is it? He looked at marketing crosstabs and saw that, like, when Democrats put immigration to the forefront, when Democrats put immigration in the forefront of their conversation on their political messaging, they still were failing. Okay? Nobody believes them because the issue is built around hysteria. It's not a real problem. You're trying to captivate people who have been duped by the media into thinking that it's a real issue. We don't need it to work. We needed to undercut the GOP messaging frame. If they don't have, okay, well, now you're again proving the point that I'm making. You don't undercut the GOP messaging. You don't undercut the GOP messaging, especially at a time when I think he deleted that tweet because the data was AI driven. Okay. Regardless, when border apprehensions are actually at an all-time low now because of the stringent immigrant protocols that Biden put in place already, okay, it is not a real issue to begin with, but it's especially not a issue to begin with. You don't undercut them by adopting their messaging. You actually defend your policy, defend your side of the argument, okay? You actually counter message. You don't undercut their message. It is a failure if you try to undercut their message. We don't need to work. We need to undercut the GOP messaging frame. If they don't have immigration, they already don't have immigration. And they would never have immigration if they would never have immigration as a thing that they can push for if Democrats basically kept repeating, look at how bad it's going to be to do immigrant detention centers. Remember how bad that shit was when you had children in cages? Trump wants to bring that shit back. That was a successful narrative in 2020. It will be a successful narrative in 2024. Just literally point to how Trump says all the time that hundreds of thousands of Americans are being murdered by migrants. 23 is the number. 23 homicides in 2024. When I told this to Ro Khanna, he was like, what? That's crazy. You're a literal sitting representative. How the f do you not know this? How has not a single Democrat looked at the numbers? It blows my mind. 90% of all drugs coming over the border are apprehended at regular border crossings, and 90% of the people that are apprehended for trafficking drugs are literally American citizens, okay? So on that front, it's complete nonsense that the Republicans try to tie the fentanyl crisis to immigration. Republicans also try to tie murders to immigration. 23 homicides from undocumented migrants. You described the simplest counter messaging. He reacted like you invented nuclear fusion. It's ridiculous. And the reason why the majority of Democrats are like so reactionary on immigration is because the Democrats don't ever point this out. Point it out. Can you remind chat where we can find this information again? Yes. cbp.gov and dhs.gov, okay? Two incredibly woke departments with a .gov behind them. Customs and Border Patrol.gov, Department of Homeland Security.gov. All of this information is readily available. The numbers don't matter. Perception matters. I am going to literally die. Perception can change, okay? Perception can change. I've shown you how perception was different in 2020. Why are we arguing right now? I'm literally losing my mind, dude. I'm telling you, perception was different in 2020. In 2024, people are right-wing as f. Why are they right-wing as f? Because the Democrats have completely dropped it. They've dropped the ball entirely. Oh. Unprofessional grifting hacks around this issue on the Dem left side. Okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. My mom arguing about criminal migrants, so I did a single good, found a CDP stat and showed her. Didn't know the stat existed beforehand. It took one Google. Anyway, like, what are we doing? When the right actually hallucinate ourselves into the Fourth Reich, what are we supposed to do? No one is supposed to counter message against it because, like, I'm sorry, it's too powerful of a message. We are not left with this stupid situation because the entire immigrant framing is literally built on a house of cards. Okay? It's built on a house of cards. The irony is Democrats literally adopting the right-wing framing on the issue and claiming that immigration is a matter of national security is the worst thing that the Democrats could do. It's the worst thing because you've only legitimized their framing on it. It is the dumbest thing. A major fail for the Democrats and is costly. It's a costly electoral calculation and it's an abject failure. This is the Democrats running scared once again. I hate it. I will never stand for it. It's the Democrats running scared and wanting to hug and kiss the Republican Party because they want to fuck the Republicans. They want to be loved by the Republicans because they love the Republicans. They are Republicans in some instances. It's bad politics. It's bad policy. It's so perfectly old school Democratic Party. Holy shit. Where the is the Jamel Bowie video? Let's finish this off.
And if an immigration bill is part of the legislative package under a Harris administration, I guarantee that immigration bill is going to be much less punitive than what the campaign's rhetoric might imply. So
yeah, this part is also not only hopium, but just like objectively false because he says like, oh, Democrats are going to push for a much more tolerant pathway to like a much more tolerant, like reform focused immigration bill. They haven't. They didn't. Kamala is running on the most right wing anti-immigrant border bill with zero compromises for the Democrats in it. She was running currently on pushing that bill. She's running on the hypocrisy narrative. It's crazy.
That's just, as always, people make whatever political decision to.
And luckily for the Democrats, the Republicans are too stupid to literally turn around and be like, these guys called us Nazis for wanting to build the border wall. Now they act like they want to build the border wall. What the fuck is that about? They're calling you a Nazi because you chanted build that border wall. Now they have a package that they lied about that has border. They have literally the building the wall in it. We know they're not going to do it. They just want to win you over because they recognize that immigration is a problem. That's what the Republicans should be saying. Are you quoting polling from 2021? Seriously? No, Jamel Bowie was. You came late. Okay, that was an entirely separate conversation. Before we started talking about, no, dude, this is not the own that you think it is. That's a separate conversation. God damn it. Oh my God. Lib Bizzle, get with the program. I'm not using polling from 3 years ago. That's a separate conversation that we were talking about before we got on a tangent on immigration. Please, Jesus Christ. This is a totally separate conversation that has like one aspect of it is on immigration, but we were talking about something entirely different there. Holy fuck. He's not listening to anything I'm saying. He thinks that this is like, my dude, go to this link. Oh my God. Oh my God. Liberal Bizzle. You do not know. You came in late. You have no idea what we were talking about earlier. It is unrelated. You are scared to open it. No, I'm not. I've looked at this, dummy. What are you talking about? I've looked at this. I've looked at this so many times. This is a separate conversation. The immigrant... Oh my God. Liberal Bizzle, you need to stop. I know this, okay? That poll data was the one that Jamel Bowie was talking about when he was covering what percentage of the base of support in the Democratic Party is progressive, okay? That is an entirely separate conversation. Oh my God. Like a child walking in the middle of a movie, you're out of your element. I know. They would just say 23 undocumented murders is 23 too many and is proof that they should enforce border security even more. They use this argument in the UK regarding migrants committing crimes too. How do you argue against someone making that point? That is an insane way to try and make a point like that, okay? You're talking about lighting a match when there's a house on fire. Do you put out the house fire or do you focus on the guy lighting the match? It's like tens of thousands of homicides happen in the United States of America every year. If you're literally talking about the 0.1%, you are delusional, okay? Didn't Ro Khanna say the same thing about 23 too many? Yes, and I literally repeated the same point that I made to him. Okay. Yeah. 23 instances of homicide by undocumented migrants. So we have to deport 12 to 15 million people from U.S. soil. What kind of Hitlerian nonsense is this? Anyway,
Guns.
we're moving on from that.